Are you ready to become a change maker? Our 48-week postgraduate program in public policy or the PGP may be just the thing for you. This hybrid program is designed to give you both the theoretical foundation and hands-on experience needed to excel in policy making. With a mix of expert-led webinars, in-person workshops, and policy simulation exercises, you'll gain real-world skills along with personalized mentorship. Through our policy programs, we connect good people to good ideas and good networks. Apply now at the link in the description to make an impact.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello everyone, welcome to the All Things Policy podcast. I am Astha Rastogi, Program Manager for Defense and Foreign Affairs at the Takshashila Institution, and I'll be your host for this episode. I am here with Anvesha Sen, who researches AI governance and tech policy at Takshashila. We are going to be talking about the social impact of AI-generated art. Recently, OpenAI released GPT-4o, which included art generation, particularly Studio Ghibli-style anime recreation of users' pictures. This update took the internet by storm, and social media platforms were flooded with people creating their images in Studio Ghibli style. Parallelly, conversations around the integrity of artwork, copyright, intellectual property rights, and protecting the livelihood of artists were highlighted. We will attempt to dissect this. So, Anvesha, what comes to your mind when you hear AI-generated art?
Thank you, Asta, and thank you for having me here today. AI-generated art essentially would be an AI model that's been trained on different art forms, different artworks, so to speak, different, graphics, any form of art that's available digitally, and then it's trained to reproduce these sort of pictures, images, which could be in the form of a cartoon, an anime, or it could be a realistic picture, or even say an infographic or a poster. So any such visual mode is would be considered to be AI generated art. But then obviously there's also different aspects to it, wherein obviously an infographic or a graph recreation would not have the same sort of impact as a proper artwork or a painting form of art, etc. That's pretty much the sort of background to it, and it's similar to how text generation is also done, but obviously a lot more complicated.
So, these tools like DALL-E, Midjourney, what exactly are they doing? Are they creating the art, or are they creating something which is actually changing the space of art?
It's questionable as to whether it's actually creating art. That would be a far more philosophical debate as to whether a non-human can create art, whether technology or a system can create art. But definitely, it has a significant impact on the way that people are thinking about art and the way that even artists are creating art. Whether there are more new generation artists are thinking that this is a redundant space, perhaps, given that AI is able to generate pretty decent quality of art, and then is that leading to a loss of maybe quality in the type of art that's created? Is it impacting the way that people are thinking of consuming art also, whether they're always on the lookout for whether the type of art that they're seeing is AI generated or human generated. I know that when I'm looking at art, I say on social media, I'm always looking for signs of whether it's AI generated or deep fake. But yeah, I think it's definitely changed the way that people view art, whether they are an artist or not, and that is something that needs to be discussed a lot.
So I think automating which are repetitive in nature will be okay, which makes life easier. But when it comes to art, taking away the context of it makes no sense. So, in that context, what do you think freelancers and people who've been creating art using these tools or maybe trying to be more creative, how are they taking these things?
So I think it's the same as how a lot of us have been talking about using even say text generation tools. Use it to help your work, to augment your work, and not entirely replace these roles of say a graphic designer or social media marketer, etc. Obviously, I mean these tools are here to stay; they're not going anywhere. But using it to replace art or to create, really to sort of replicate human creativity in some sense is something that is questionable. And I also don't think in the long term that is something that will be done. Because obviously there's a lot of, like you mentioned, there's a lot of context to art if you're talking about paintings and stuff. So I think if artists are using AI to augment their art, I think that's definitely the way the world will work. Eventually, writers will use AI to augment their writing. And similarly, all other professions will use AI in some form or the other if they're not already. But yeah, I mean, it's a balance between completely automating it versus just using it to improve on your art. And we also use, for example, another form of digital art would be people creating artworks on tablets and iPads, which is in a form not the traditional way of painting, but that is also art, and it also requires a level of talent and creativity from the artist themselves.
Agreed, Anvesha. But there's also one thing that came to my mind while I was reading about all these things is the more we use these tools to kind of make art more creative and have that space created, what I think in the process we are losing is a muscle memory to create something which is very original. And it sort of takes the data, collates a picture which the AI projects from the data sets it has. But also, as humans, we will be losing the context, the memory muscle of it, and we'll just get used to looking at these images and kind of start feeling that these are arts. Uh, so, what do you have to say in that? Like, it will probably get AI pictures would get weddings, festivals, probably a culture completely wrong or just stereotyping, reinforcing those stereotypes. So,
Yeah, I think that's an ongoing battle with these forms of LLMs and AI generated art, etc. Is that the data sets themselves are very limited. For instance, I mean, obviously, art is a big form of how a culture is represented or how a culture portrays itself. Um, Various cultures have their own sort of art forms, whether that's visual art or even say dance, music, etc. And what happens is, if you're dependent on digitally available data sets, a lot of these different, very niche, diverse art forms, they sort of they're not included in the data sets just as a result of lack of digitization in many parts of the world. And so the same thing that we've seen with LLMs and even the language aspect of the LLMs is that there is a focus on English. There's obviously a focus on countries in the global north which have been digitized much more rapidly compared to the global south. And so a lot of these data sets are in some sense homogenized and will not quite include say traditional art forms traditional to different Indian cultures, for example. And that would obviously lead to a certain type of distortion of culture. We've also seen that in the recent trend as well, where in some instances the model wasn't correctly able to pick up what they were, converting to Studio Ghibli style. So there was an instance where, say, it was a picture of Indian women in traditional wear going for some sort of a festival, and they were holding a plate with a coconut, and in one of the images it distorted the coconut as a human head, and so that's obviously quite problematic. And these are some things that if it's an AI generated model, it will get these things wrong because it's again a matter of pattern recognition. And it's not actually, I mean, the concept of reasoning and thinking is something that we are yet to fully understand, and it's not something that AI models obviously have fully sort of integrated in them. So the whole idea of a model being able to think and then convert it to a different art form is not quite accurate. And so when you have, in addition to that, when you have a biased or disbalanced in some sense data set, it is quite likely to get a lot of these nuances of culture and diversity incorrect.
Sure. So now moving on to in terms of copyright laws that have been written in like say international context or in Indian context, do you think they still work in the age of AI, or do they need some kind of adaptability or coming of the age? What do you think of it?
With copyright laws and also broadly speaking, the sort of rights and protections that we have in terms of intellectual property, with AI and AI generation particularly, these are quite. I'm not sure how much they still apply, just because the models themselves perform as a black box. So there's no real way to go back and check whether a certain artwork was used in a certain data set. There's also a lack of transparency overall. So the idea behind having these rights is to provide a form of grievance redressal to people who think whose intellectual property has been stolen, whose original work has been stolen. But if there's no way to really check whether that intellectual property has in fact been stolen or used in some such data set, there's no real way to implement these laws. Which is also what we're seeing with these AI models, whether it's in terms of art, whether it's in terms of written work. So I think there needs to be some sort of a revamping of the sort of laws that we have. Obviously, the original laws work fine for the pre-AI era, but post that, I think there's a need to rethink how we can introduce new forms of laws and governance to then protect artists' work and also by extension protect their livelihood.
Sure. So basically, we need to have a law in place which gives people to opt in and opt out of the system.
Sure. Yeah, that is something we kind of have in some places in the world, where you can opt in and out of, whether it's in the form of cookies, which is not particularly relevant to AI, but also in terms of collecting and storing your personal data, even non-personal data, or using that data for targeted advertisements, etc. But I'm also unsure how the opt-in, opt-out, the whole consent framework might work in this, just again given the fact that there's a lack of transparency, so you won't really ever be sure whether your art has been used or not. I mean, another thing that comes up in this conversation is monetizing the data that is being used. So providing some sort of monetary remuneration to artists if their art is being used for these models, or some such model. But these are all, again, quite difficult to implement. I'm not sure if we have the capacity to do this. And I mean, these models are already there in existence. And so AI generated art will continue to be there. And now that it's already out in the world, I'm not sure how much can be done to then rectify, you know, the IP violations that may have occurred, etc. So it's a complicated topic, but definitely needs a lot more discussion. And there should be some solution which is a sort of hybrid of these different.
So there's one thing that is coming to my mind while you are telling me about these models and how they work and how the consent framework would work. So what I can think of it is, so if suppose there's a scenario where there are two artists, one is very good at generating AI images and the other one is doing everything manually, but it takes longer time. So according to the current scenario, who you think should be given preference or who should be paid better?
So realistically speaking, obviously efficiency is something that would, I assume, be monetized more. You'll be able to get a lot more work done in the same amount of time when compared to someone who is, doing everything themselves without any automation. But obviously, there is also the aspect of the effort that a person puts in. So, say, if these two individuals are freelancers, if someone is doing everything on their own in their, without using the help of AI, they would charge more for their time, as they should. But on the other hand, the other person will be able to get a lot more work done in the same time. And so, in effect, perhaps they will end up earning the same amount, but then it also depends on the person who is paying for this. If they want the work to be done faster, then they will be willing to pay more for more efficiency, regardless of the use of AI. But yeah, I mean, again, how do you really monetize this? Because the use of AI also has a cost. You need certain, access to certain premium models, which again costs the artist a certain amount. So overall, perhaps it will be balanced, but I think that's the closest answer.
Sure. So what I've seen happening is that art is very centric to the human existence. It's a skill. It's something that is attached to the core of the existence, which is very emotional, which is very contextual, and all of the collective history and the memory a community would remember it as. And when there is an artist which is giving prompts and creating, trying to at least create something similar, I think that is very detached to the art. And now, like when I think of it, I want to understand that what can be done to protect artists' right in this new space. The ones who are creating using their hands, using the skill and creativity they have harnessed over a period of time. So looking at the world from their perspective.
I think yes, you're very right in saying that art is centric to the human experience, and I think that is what will, in the end, also protect artists, in the sense that people will not, after a while, will not want to view as much AI generated art. As far as as far as I think, this is a passing phase, where it's something new, it's something exciting, and so everyone's using AI to generate art. But over time, wanting to view art that is created out of a certain emotion, a certain, say, historical event, or collective memory, as you mentioned. I think that is something that pushes people to consume and create art, and I don't think that's going away anytime soon. So that is one sort of natural, perhaps, phenomenon which will protect artists. Beyond that, if you're talking about policies that can be brought in to protect artists' livelihoods, in terms of policy, I mean, currently there is no real market failure that has come out of the result of AI generated art. It's also a very fast evolving space and needs time to be analyzed and to see what may be done, whether anything is required to be done on behalf of either companies or the government, etc. So there's no real easy answer to this. It's something we might have to just wait and watch.
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why we are having this conversation, not just here, but across internet. We have been seeing all these people speak up about how Ghibli fans are not taking it well. And this is not just one Ghibli studio that has encountered something like this, but there have been multiple scenarios where images have been just, for example, Vincent Van Gogh, he's just all over the place. His images has been replicated over like phone cases on laptop skins everywhere. So how does one take that out of the digitization of it and not copying the artist's work? It's really funny when it gets to really when we think of creative spaces. And it's not just in terms of painting, it's also in terms of when you're writing. How many times have we tried to actually write our own work? In the name of even writing, we are using tools which will enhance the way we write. And I don't understand what does enhancing make it. Because I feel like every creative thing is depersonalized when you actually want to make it very perfect and make it detached to what style of writing you actually have adapted to. So that's what I think of it. But yeah, like, have we made creativity too fast, too easy? It's like quantity over quality. Do you think that?
In some sense, yes. I think it's just as a result of the sort of social times that we're living in. it's easier to just get things done rather than spending a good amount of time to, say, I mean, the lifestyle that people in the time of, say, Van Gogh, that must have been a lot different than what it is today as a result of, industrialization and, the requirement of work efficiency, productivity, etc. And it's just easier to get certain things done quicker. And if you have, an LLM tool or something, it just makes it a lot faster. But when you talk about creativity, it's also, I mean, I'm not sure who said this, but imperfection is core to art, and you can't really have perfect art. And so then using AI to then perfect art is something that's quite counterintuitive in a sense. And on this being, quantity over quality, I think you're very right. And this is also, I mean, in a funny way, I guess it's also the way that AI functions. It's the quantity of a certain amount of data is more important than the quality. So the number of times a certain type of data is repeated, the better trained the model will be on that type of data. So I think even the product that we see, the faster turnaround time, etc., that also in some sense relates to this, wherein you have faster outputs, and it's also the same type of output. Now when we look at text generation, a lot of, even when you look at a certain piece of writing, if it has been AI generated, even if AI has been used to augment it or improve the writing, it's very visibly and noticeably AI generated. There's certain words, certain phrases that are very core to these LLMs, and it's very easy to make out whether a piece of writing has been written by a human or it's been generated through AI. I think the same thing will also happen with art, where you're able to make out whether something is, the endeavor of a human's creativity or whether it's been generated by AI.
So I want to ask you, if machines are doing the seeing and creating for us, what are we losing, or are we losing ourselves in it?
I think it's similar to how we saw, the boom of social media, and how everyone's, instead of actually experiencing certain things, people generally, the younger generation particularly, have been, attempting to capture these memories as videos, as photos, in order to post on social media. And it's sort of set up the a couple of generations at this point, I think 3 4 generations, where um, people's lives often revolve around social media. You have this urge to share everything that you're experiencing on various social media platforms, and that sort of changed the way we function in a sense, broadly. Now with AI, it's, as far as I think, it's taken it to another level, where not only are we now sharing experiences, we're also recreating experiences, or whether it's art or whether it's a piece of writing, we're trying to improve, so to speak, upon it using AI. And I think I'll still say that the way that humans have been, there will be a time when using AI to sort of replicate human creativity will fade out, and it won't be done as much, and we'll settle on using AI for augmenting our work, and not use it to replicate creativity. And so eventually, I think we'll go back to that primal connection that we have to art, and perhaps to take a break from using AI to generate a lot of work that we do for improving on productivity, efficiency, etc. We'll perhaps go back to creating a lot more art in our free time. Ideally, that is what should happen, since AI as a tool can really help improve efficiency and free up a lot more of our time to delve into various art forms, to create pieces of writing, pieces of art, or perhaps go back to music and dance, etc., and having a lot more leisure time, so to speak. So I think another important question in this area would also be, how does this whole fad of AI generation really impact leisure and how we think about leisure? Because Otherwise, we're constantly surrounded by technology. We're constantly surrounded by different screens. If we're not using AI, we're using social media. We're typing, etc. And I think at some point we'll, as a society, maybe collectively want to go back to really using human creativity to produce different forms of art.
That's an interesting take, Anvish. I feel like what you are driving this conversation towards is that how AI will take up most of the automated, redundant tasks for us and then leave more space for creativity, for creating better things, for creating things for recreation and like just being out wild and being creative. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense that AI was primarily created to do these tasks for us and not take our place. So basically, it's not a replacement for us, but it's a tool that can help us automate repeated redundant tasks and enhance the work that we are doing. So, with this, we want to leave you with one very important question, which is art still art if it doesn't come from a human experience? Is a question we should think, we should ponder, and we'll leave you with this. Thank you for being with us.
If you liked our show, dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs. Check us out at our Twitter handle @Takshashila INST or our website takshashila.org.in.